Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday, right? Fourth day of Stellar Fest. I really appreciate you guys coming out on the 10 o'clock Sunday morning. I know how it is. We're not going to try to stress your brain cells out too much. This is a panel about time travel. Luke and I have had a lot of discussions about time travel as far back as I can remember knowing him. I am a member of the co-host of the Fandom Hybrid podcast. We've been going strong for since the pandemic, when we were all locked up and you had nothing to do but call your friends. You call your friends, hey, let's Zoom. You talk about stuff, you know what, press record, and let's turn it into a podcast. That's when the child is started. Before that, I actually was in a podcast called the Sci-Fi Party Line. For the Fandom Hybrid podcast, you can find us on all podcast platforms. We just reached 500 subscribers yesterday, so it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. Yeah, it's a milestone for us. And I'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Nick Frutiger. I am a panelist at Dragon Con and Conjuration and now Split Fest. And I met Anthony through work, but then I got to know the gang through the podcast. I've been marathoning those for a long time now, but there's a lot of stuff, and they will talk about something else and then get into time travel, or it will come up, and there are always lots of opinions about it. So what we're going to do today is, actually, this is kind of your problem. You want to explain?
Yeah, well, this is, just so you know, time travel. Is it a narrative genius or lazy writing? I happen to believe that it is lazy writing. I actually cannot stand time travel in TV shows and movies, even in books. I just don't like it. There's one book that I kind of like. I think it was a Stephen King book. I think it was Cat's Eye. I think where someone went back in time, he ended up going back into the fantasy during like the medieval times. Anyway, I actually like that book. But Doctor Who is pretty much the only time travel thing that I like because it makes ridiculous fun of time travel. And all of the things I hate about time travel is in that show, and they just lean into it. And it's insane, and I love it. But other than that, I don't do time travel. And Nick, on the other hand, thinks time travel is an amazing storytelling device. Go ahead and tell him, Nick.
Well, I encountered another person with the same opinion as Anthony at a party, and this was casual, fun, geek conversation, and then she told me how much she didn't like a movie that everybody liked, which I won't name because we will in a minute. And I was just very, very surprised. So I'm trying to dig into this and get at it, and I asked her, well, what's an example, because she didn't like that movie, what's an example of a good time travel movie? And I assume she'll say one of the ones that we're all very familiar with, and she's quiet for a minute. She's like, I don't think they've made one yet. It really surprised me. So he's not alone in this. But we are going to get into it.
Nick is supposed to be up here to convince you.
Yeah.
Time travel is a good storytelling device.
Yeah.
I really don't believe he's in this.
Deep down in his heart, Anthony already knows most of what I'm going to say, and on some level, he knows where he's wrong. So that's, he's setting me up for success in this, but we shall see. So, you want to do, okay, part one, opening arguments. And I'm going to hit some high notes because we'll probably come back to them. If I do say something and y'all want to chime in or follow up that, you can. So, some of the things lightly touched on really quickly that make time travel a unique storytelling element. When you explore characterization and characters, time travel adds a new element where you can do some of this through flashback, but you can see not only in person some of their life events, but some of their life events later on after the story takes place. You can access multiple outcomes for a character. We're getting more into multiverse storytelling now, but that is, it's sort of like the plot of Sliders except for an individual. So you can see versions of yourself based on multiple things. We'll touch on things like butterfly effect. An additional level of problem solving and puzzling in stories, which for some of us who love puzzles. So the things that might irritate Anthony where you're just getting tangled up, it's like, okay, I see what you did there. How are you going to make that work out? It can be very exciting for us puzzlers. There is some broader messaging about the human condition, and I mean, I went back and rewatched the Time Machine from the 50s in prep for this, and it's like Star Trek, they'll take a social issue, and at the time they're like, classism. I read the book too in prep, and it's like, well, the upper class and lower class, and a writer for Star Trek for the Time Machine says, take that to an extreme over thousands of years and what could happen. So another level of storytelling about like humanity and life. And I will say one we talked about where characters die over and over again, it will give you a different perspective on just mortality if you start to, or Bill Murray goes through that. And finally, just generally, impossible closure. I mentioned before we started Ghost Whisperer having people talk to passed away loved ones as a finale for almost every episode. It's a tearjerker, but in this case, people getting to connect with people that have passed away or they're not the same person. It's the same feeling you get in Field of Dreams when Costner talks to his dad. It's like an impossible connection moment, but time travel movies can do that. And I don't have your list, but you can go through some.
We have slides.
Oh, I do, that's right.
Yes. That's okay. Good, go ahead. All right. So, time travel, I'm going to use my notes. Time travel is a messy, chaotic, plot-devouring beast. Time travel. First, let's start with the butterfly effect. Small change in the past creates a massive change in the future. Except in fiction, it's never really actually a butterfly. It's something totally stupid. It's a rabbit pterodactyl with daddy issues. Back to the plot-devouring beast. I went back in time to buy milk, and in reality, I returned. Everything is upside down. Gravity is paper use. And, my mom is a cyborg. That's literally what happens with the butterfly effect. One small change can make massive changes in reality, and it's wrong. It's terrible. Okay, so the next slide. Anytime they say there are rules, they break them. The Avengers Endgame, they say, it's cool if you do, but, just don't bet on sports. Second thing, The Flash, do whatever you want, just make sure you have enough tissue for when you cry. Save your mom, destroy the world. It's okay. Back to the Future breaks rules all the time. And then there's Star Trek.
Okay, so
I'm not done.
Wait, I'm sorry. We have Star Trek slides.
We have a Star Trek slide. That's okay. We'll get to it. We'll put a pin in it and come back to Star Trek.
Okay. Just to retort briefly, we mentioned before that we're not going to necessarily do a whole thing on paradoxes specifically, but also in a lot of time travel stories, there's either a static timeline or a dynamic one. A dynamic one, you can mess things up and move things around like Back to the Future. And it affects different ways, but you can change things. And then a static one, more like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, you can go back and you think you're changing anything, but you're going to find out you already did it. So if you go back to Stellarfest and barge into this room and say something, as soon as you do, you're going to realize there was a strange person who did that, and you didn't actually, we saw that. That wasn't new. So the static timeline doesn't change anything that already happened. It's clear to me, but some of y'all
not proving my point. It's not like, how do the paradoxes not clash with each other? There's so, okay, all right, I'm sorry. But butterfly effect breaks all of it. It makes no sense.
But if it already happened, then it's not a butterfly effect. It already happened.
In a static timeline,
Yes.
you could go back in time and step on butterflies because in human history, that was part of our story.
Again,
but in a dynamic one,
storytelling.
I didn't disagree with that. I was pointing on that side of it. Yes.
Back to the
Those are
Future
separate
has
conversations.
Back to the Future has incredible consistent internal logic. The only thing it does, and it does this
Internal logic.
it does this thing that I haven't seen other time travel movies do, where you can change things, but there's like a wave, and they don't say this in the movie, but there's a wave of effect, and it takes time to get there. So Marty doesn't disappear immediately or something. It's like it's slowly happening, and this is, if you worry about paradoxes or something, it kind of implies that, you know, Biff goes back and comes back, and his future is still there. That really doesn't seem right, but in the extended version, he falls over and then disappears. It's like this slow effect. But anyway, I'm not.
But
yeah.
Again, you have writers using time travel as a crutch, and they only make it convenient when the rules are convenient, and then they break the rules when it's convenient to break the rules. And then, oh, by the way, these are the rules. And so, oh yeah, it happened already. Well, then why did you write it for them to go back in time to begin with? You know, what is the whole point?
Could we say the same for magic? Or the Force or something? We have rules until we need to break the rules, and then we break the rule to make it fit the story we want to tell. So I'm just saying, like, maybe that's not specific to just time travel.
Valid point, that's for another panel.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
no, see, and this is the thing that with the time travel movies, and Anthony and I see this differently, where I feel like every time travel movie, I can't think of a non-example, it has rules that it follows consistently. When they do something that doesn't, oh, you said you couldn't do that. I'm like, well, then they were wrong about that, and that's how it works in this universe when you time travel. But it doesn't seem like it's changing to me. He'll be like, you clearly said you couldn't do that.
Well, to your point, what we're really talking about is Deus Ex Machina, where your writer has these devices that can totally change the story and turn the story upside down. And the same thing goes with magic. I mean, they make rules and break rules all the time in fantasy. And it doesn't bother me as much in fantasy as it does time travel, because time travel makes my head hurt. Because I'm an intellectual person, and I like for things to kind of be, if it's going to be a certain way, then it should be that certain way. I talk about the butterfly effect, but how many of you have seen the movie Butterfly? Okay, so he learns he has the ability to go back in time and change things. He goes back in time, he changes things and comes back. Things have changed, but his memory doesn't. And then he adds his memory because the memories change, but they don't go away. And it's creating brain damage every time he time travels because everything changes. And he keeps going back and things get worse and worse and worse. Like I had a thing where I was gonna say, yeah, it's cool to go back in time, but don't read the diary because it's gonna cause the world to explode, right? And that's sort of what the butterfly effect is. I like it because it fits with my belief that if it doesn't erase, it changes the timeline, doesn't erase it, because he still exists, he still has memories, and it's like overloading his brain, right? So I don't have that big of a problem with it, I just have a problem with the mechanics.
And he deep down enjoys the butterfly effect. Did you say that? These three are great examples, and I'm not going to dig into them right now, but it's just the Star Trek one is like an old series episode where it's an excuse for them to get to walk around in, at that time, modern times, and there was wonderful stuff that happened. Avengers is an example because it was the conclusion of an entire saga in like 10 years of movies, so they had an excuse to have all these characters have impossible closure scenes. In The Flash, failure on the screen, I can admit that, but I mean, just in this picture, we've got Batman, and a lot of us were like, oh man, that movie, I really want to come and see Michael Keaton. So it's like, this thing.
Right, but the Avengers Endgame, are we supposed to believe that everything happened that way? Like, that's how it originally happened. So Captain America going back in time.
Oh, what I was saying about
That's a whole other panel.
No.
But that's sort of my point.
No, they totally changed stuff.
They totally changed.
They totally changed stuff.
No, but do they remember what happened before?
Yeah.
And why does it cause brain damage?
Because, and this, I do have kind of a slide for this. Okay, there's two of them. And the fun thing is that time travel, you know it's getting complicated when I may think it makes sense, but I'm surprised to find the audience doesn't. They have someone on screen give a short class in the mechanics. And they have two of them in Endgame. The Hulk tries to explain it in the present, and then the ancient one draws us a diagram. And this looked familiar to me when she did it, because Doc Brown did the same thing in Back to the Future 2. Back to the Future 2 was our first experience with a dark alternate timeline in popular media, and the world did not get it. In fact, I think they pulled people, and after they came out, they were pretty sure they were in the future or something. And I'm like, no, it's the present. He literally tries to take the audience to school. And I think this is kind of what Anthony's talking about, like, show, don't tell, where it's like, if you have to sit down and explain things to the audience, maybe you need to rethink it. I end up with a spoon. I'm like, ooh, time travel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the in the Avengers, their mechanic, the way they describe it, they're like, no, Back to the Future is totally wrong. And me and a bunch of people are like, hey, don't say that. But they want to have it both ways. They have a static dynamic timeline. You can go back and change anything, but it's somebody else's timeline. There is a precedent for this. There are other shows that do this. Time Tracks is a cop from the future, and he would go back, but there are villains from the future, and they're doing things trying to kill their own parents or something, but he's telling them, you're not actually changing your future. Anything you do back here, you can kill your parents before you're born and all that stuff, it's not gonna change. And as a kid, I didn't get that. I was like, what? But it's the Avengers try and do that so they can't kill Thanos, which is
I'm going to use Avengers as an example. It's not Avengers again. The writers wrote themselves into a corner. How are they supposed to defeat Thanos? Like, there's no possible way. The way everything is set up, there's no way they can defeat Thanos. So the writers, I know how we can fix this. A wormhole, right? So they basically use a wormhole to travel back in time, do everything they need to do. And next thing you know, you have several versions of the main character, several different timelines, alternate reality. You have all this stuff that you have now created because you had to end Avengers Endgame. Like, you had to that story had to come to a conclusion. And that's a problem with the TVA. If you watch Loki, the TVA is a mess. Like, the Marvel, this is not about MCU, but they have shown us what is wrong with time travel. They've shown us what is wrong with having what the problem is with multiple realities. You have written this convoluted mess, and so the only way you can fix it is you're gonna have to destroy them all, which is probably what they're going to do. But my bigger point is it's a mess, it's a headache. People are gonna check out on this because if I check out on it, then I know that everyone's gonna check out on it because I tolerate time travel. Yeah, it's time to go because I talk about it on the podcast. Anytime there's time travel, I have a problem because it just creates more problems. Just write a good story. You don't have to throw time travel in to fix it. I don't know how they could have fixed Thanos. I don't know how. The whole premise of Back to the Future, yeah, it was fun as a kid, but the older I got, the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me.
I jump to that before Avengers. You did some good Avengers stuff, and I want to talk about it.
Okay.
So when he talks about kind of writing yourself into a corner, I want you to picture the writer's room for Infinity War and Endgame. Russo brothers sitting there. They've got a couple of choices. If you've seen the finale of Seinfeld, which did not land very well at all, they clearly sat down and said, how do you end this show? And they said, what can we do to have a parade of characters from the past? Because it's a big finale. So the Russo brothers have a couple of options. And to answer Anthony's question, how do you beat Thanos? Well, you don't do it in Endgame. You do it in a two-parter that you plan ahead. And if they weren't going to do time travel, Infinity War would have gone very, very differently. So it's like, in any superhero movie, we know how you beat anybody. Somebody else goes Super Saiyan and goes, ah, and it's like, they would overcome with extra powers. I mean, they could have told that story, but instead, somebody in the room said, I want to do the showcase movie. I want to end on this high note where I want Steve to get to go back in time and dance with Peggy. which by the way, this is one of the reasons you're wrong, is because my wife is still crying about this. So it's like, you can argue it, but it's like, if Steve gets closure with Peggy and people are like, that's what he deserved. Another of Anthony's Achilles heels is Quantum Leap. And this is stolen from Quantum Leap.
Stop.
I'm not trying to jump topics, but the Peggy and Steve thing is a Quantum Leap thing.
No, it's not. It's not the same thing.
We can do a panel called It's Not the Same.
It's not the same.
But anyway, I was trying to give credit to Quantum Leap. But the idea is you want a character to have some sort of cool closure. And they were kind of closing the book on Iron Man. They thought Thor, and they thought Cap, and a little bit lighter ones for the other original Avengers. So you have these reasons for Thor to get to see his mom and say goodbye and stuff. He'd already kind of had a thing with his dad.
So you're basically saying they did the two worst things writers can do: nostalgia and time travel, right?
He said best wrong, but yeah. These other, so I get to talk about Avengers. So do you want to go back to the future?
Well, no, I want to go to this, our best and worst.
Okay.
So I think you had best first, or
Yeah, all
worst?
right. Let me see. I already mentioned Star Trek 4 getting to have them go back in time, and Terminator 2 and Terminator 1. I honestly, my wife and I disagree as to whether Aliens or Terminator 2 is the best action movie of all time, but it is a static timeline for most of the movies where they're constantly trying to change the future or something, but it seems to work out about the same way anyway. But it provides these puzzling elements and these action pieces that are just impossible. So a lot of us enjoy the paradoxical nature of Terminator, even though I can totally see what Anthony's talking about with like, wait, the only reason John Connor is born is because they sent a machine back to stop him from being born. So it's if you can decide right now if that feels fun to you or if that feels obnoxious to you, you can kind of see where you're headed.
But we did have a conversation about this
Yeah.
because is it possible that John Connor was born because she met some other dude at the party? And then Skynet changed everything by sending Reese back, so Reese is John. Either way, she has John Connor, whether it's by Kyle Reese or by some random dude in the club.
That's not the same John Connor.
It's not
Like,
the same
it's
John
like,
Connor.
you can name him
Exactly
John,
right.
but that doesn't make him John Connor. The John Connor that does the actions is the John Connor that has to exist from his father traveling back in time. The other John Connor theoretically is in his alternate timeline, and
Right.
the multiverse John Connor.
Right, but is John Connor here to save us or is he here to destroy us? Because later
Yeah,
the
both.
John Connor comes back and this Skynet John Connor who's trying to destroy
Oh, that's
us all.
cool, man. That's you're
Yeah.
gonna bring that in. That's rough.
So Terminator, that franchise is the second worst at destroying my belief in time travel behind Star Trek. But we'll get to that.
Wait.
But go ahead, go on with your best.
The end of Terminator 1, this kid takes a picture of Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor, as she's driving off through the desert. And you've seen the picture the whole way through. And so many directors have copied this kind of moment at the end where you didn't realize you were looking at something, but it's just this casual moment. How it adds up or how it makes sense or something is much more vague. But if we do, after this panel, if he and I are discussing John Connors and causality, man, is that fun.
Yeah, but the Terminator animated movie that just came out blows up the entire franchise.
Has anyone in here seen the Terminator animated movie they just came out?
Don't. If you like Terminator franchise the way it is, do not watch it.
Time Cop is in this picture, not as a non-example. Honestly, not for the splits, but Time Cop is funny because it doesn't get a lot of praise, but it invented an example on screen of shoving a bad guy into himself and it turning into like an antimatter blob. And so other movies will say, don't do that, it would be really bad. But that's the only movie that did it, and we were like, ooh, it's really bad. So that was sort of fun.
Well, Dr. Who did something similar where
I might have missed
Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart saw himself in the classic. He saw himself and they like passed out.
Oh, and that happened to Elizabeth Shue in Back to the Future too.
Yeah.
He thought it might destroy the universe, but instead she just went, I'm old. Other examples of best. Back to the Future is amazing, and I mean everybody knows that. But I mean I think I have a picture if I can find it. But the Time Machine, the remake gives Orlando Jones this opportunity to absolutely stare into our souls and wreck us emotionally because he's been a hologram. This is before the Doctor on Voyager. He has been a hologram for thousands and thousands of years watching humanity die, and he's haunted AI. The man has gravitas. But it lets you play with some of the dynamics because Guy Pearce talks to him in probably the year 3000 and then talks to him in the year maybe 10,000 or 30,000. And he's like, oh, I remember you. And there are no normal humans at that time. So this guy has just been standing there waiting. So yeah, cool. And I don't know, fun, positive examples that are crowd pleasers. Somewhere in time, we might do a magical time travel panel at the Conjuration. Oh gosh,
I got one.
Yeah.
I gotta go. So, Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is at the end a time travel film. We go back 13 seconds.
The Omega 13
And the Omega 13, right? And so we don't have too many splits. You see what's bad, push the button, go back, fix my problem. You know, is it weak writing? Maybe a little bit, but it's kind of fun. They've been leading to it the whole time. And so from a butterfly effect, you know, does the time that we travel matter? Does 13 seconds have that little of an effect that they can save everything versus, 30 years from a Back to the Future standpoint?
So is robbing a Lamborghini worse than stealing a chocolate bar?
Yes.
Okay. So then yes, 13 seconds, I'm fine with that.
Oh, really? You already said Deus Ex Machina, and that's like the most, that's the most obvious, we all died. No, we all lived. But
Yeah.
let me do one more awesome example. So Trials and Tribulations, if you're like me and you're sort of in the middle about Deep Space Nine in general, and then they do this, and we have a panel kind of talking about original Trek, and do you make new sets, do you honor cardboard sets, and this scene is impossible. And you've got time travel cops in another slide that are just like, yeah, I'd probably have said hi to Kirk too.
So if this had already happened, I didn't see that episode of the original series where the DS9 people showed up.
It was totally there. You gotta go back and watch it. No, it's a good question because we did talk about this a little bit. I don't know if we talked about it with Doctor Who. We talked a lot about Star Trek, but the problem with Star Trek is with anything they have multiple writers. So I have an opinion about the Prime Directive, and it is consistent in its general idea for a ton of them. And then Worf's adopted brother shows up for one of my least favorite episodes, written by someone who thinks the Prime Directive is something completely different. So without getting into that, you can have episodes that have one kind of time travel logic in Star Trek, and it's consistent for the episode, but then you have another episode, and it's like, no, you can't do that.
But it's like the Prime Directive is the Prime Succession, right? It's like the temporal, they have a temporal Prime Directive, which is also a temporal Prime Succession. But okay, you have more bets?
Yeah, but I'm gonna keep coming up with them. I mean, there's City on the Edge of Forever is amazing.
I like it. So you're gonna start shape.
I'm jumping. Well, I mean, it's the one with the big examples, and it just if you have somebody, you talked about showing best of like to a loved one, and it's like because this is about why we do time travel stories, where you convince someone that like making the right choice might have disastrous effects. Or doing something terrible might have positive effects. And it gets to do that character development while also doing the Star Trek 4 thing where you get to see people in that anachronistic environment and Spock's wearing a funny hat. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Monica, for you. So in Wheel of Time, there's a, how many of you in here have read the Wheel of Time series? Okay, so it's old. So there's they can use the one power, and one of the old weaves of the one power they could do is called Balefire. And so there, instead of doing time travel, balefire burns you out of the pattern, and depending on how strong the balefire is, it will undo everything that person did back at a certain point in time. So there are some characters that die, and as a reader, you're like, oh my God, they're dead. And then Rand comes along, balefire, oh, they're alive again. And like, really, Robert Jordan? And it's like he loved it, and so he just kept doing it over and over and over again, all the way up to the last battle when you have a character just bell firing entire army divisions. And people are like, wait a second, this is not good. So even though I love Robert Jordan, that version of time traveling kind of bothers me a little bit too, because it is so convenient to be able to undead characters, once you kill them. And that goes back to, because you made me think about it with Galaxy Quest, because they essentially did the same thing, which is, all the characters are dead. Oh, I have a way to bring them all back. And I don't know. Anyway,
I'm going to do a spoiler on this, but when we were talking about which John Connor is the John Connor, and there are a lot of people who like Deep Space Nine a lot more than me. But one of the episodes that they like is this Avery Brooks episode where they go back in time and they're trying to help. They know that there's this guy who's really important in an event that happens, a big, elaborate moment, and he dies. And it's like, oh no, that's not supposed to happen. So Avery Brooks has to literally, Cisco takes his place. And then you look at the historical documents and that's who it is. And you are going to wonder, it's like, wait, was it always me who was in those riots, who had that important part in history? And at that point, it doesn't matter. But this isn't one of my examples of awesome for me. It is just because I know there are Deep Space Nine fans who are like, that episode is a really good one. For me, this yesterday's Enterprise is like the top 5 episodes of Next Generation, and you got to do things like bring back Tasha Yar in these cool ways. It also got to kind of show a nice side of Diamond and stuff. But it's when you have a mechanic that brings in these things and you can see, instead of someone going to a dark timeline or another dimension like Sliders, something changes and everybody is already in it. We're in, I guess, I didn't mention community in this, but we're suddenly in the darkest timeline and we don't have any recollection of that. We have an outsider who is like, this is not right, but that's been our reality for this whole time. So that kind of storytelling where you get to see the events and stuff and then you get to change them. Are there headaches and consequences of this show? Yes, but like I said previously, I just say that's part of a bigger logic that I haven't got fully figured out yet.
But see, using Wheel of Time and Harry Potter as an example. So Robert Jordan had, when he was writing it, he established that you can't use the one power to bring characters or bring people back from dead. So he establishes that. That's a hard rule. And then later, he realized he created something where a character that he needed to be somewhere else had to do something. Oh, but they can't do it. So he had to kill them in order to free them of an obligation. So if he kills this character, I can't make it that obvious, so I have to kill multiple characters at the same time. So it won't be so obvious to the reader why I killed this character for later. But now that I've given people this power, I have to use it. Because what is the point of showing people, then people are reading like, well, why don't they just balefire? Why don't they just balefire? So every time it comes up, it's because a reader is going to be thinking, well, why don't they just use balefire? And that's essentially why it becomes a terrible thing in the book. Same thing with Harry Potter. She uses a time turner to take classes. So wait, why don't everybody use time turners? So what does she do? She destroys all the time turners, right? Then they write that play, and then bring the time turners back. Seriously, like as a writer, if you just don't do it, you don't have to worry about it, right? And just write a good story.
You didn't get a chance to mention entire seasons based on broken timelines.
Oh, no, I want to go back to my funny slide, my worst.
Which one?
Because I'm going to get these one-liners out. That one. All right. I'm going to do my one-liners. Okay, so Avengers Endgame. You can't change the past. They literally changed the the past.
They don't. They don't.
The entire Back to the Future trilogy, accidental time travel with the side of parental thirst. Okay? The entire Terminator franchise, John Connor save us all, no wait, kill us all. I'm so confused. Watching Tenet, how many of you have seen Tenet?
I think I did.
Exactly. Watching Inception underwater while swimming backwards. Even the characters don't really know what's happening. Right?
They have a policy of not knowing. I didn't make that up. They have a policy of not knowing in Tenet.
I know.
Yeah.
Because even they don't know. The butterfly effect, I said this, don't open the diary, you'll make things worse. And the Star Trek franchise, pick one, boldly breaking timelines as if it were part of the mission. They broke in more rules, their own internal rules, than they've killed red shirts. They have. All right.
What about?
Now we can go to my Star Trek slide.
You had one about.
Yeah. What about time travel like in Groundhog Day? Very controlled little time loop.
Yes.
Anthony made me watch Ark. And
Ark is on Netflix, ARQ.
Oh, I need to watch this.
and it also reminded me. I want to tie it to Groundhog Day because of the movie. I'm not going to say one directly. Edge of Tomorrow, where you have someone in an endless cycle. It seems like, and they try and do different things and or learn from what they're doing each time. Groundhog Day is fun because it's enough of a cultural phenomenon that when another movie or show does it, people describe it like, well, think of Groundhog Day. But yeah, it's they asked how long he was in the loop, and it depended on who you asked, because one person said a year or something, and the other person said 10,000 years, because that's how long it takes for a soul in Buddhism to ascend or something. But it's, yeah, Groundhog Day is fun.
My wife and I have a good maybe 3-hour debate discussion about Outlander. What is the one with the letter? With Keanu Reeves. I forgot what it's called. Oh, the Lake House. So Outlander, the Lake House, and the Time Traveler's Wife. The Time Traveler's Wife and Groundhog Day. The only weird one is Time Traveler's Wife because they tried to put science in it. They tried to kind of make it a science thing, but it's mostly fantasy. It's very similar to Outlander. Because Outlander is clearly fantasy time travel. And it's very hard, like, I don't really have a problem with fantasy time travel because it's fantasy. It's magic. Magic does weird things. It's just that in a lot of time travel movies, they try to science to explain it away. And once you start doing that, once you start making rules, it becomes sort of a hard thing for me to wrap my head around sometimes. Time travel is like that in stones they used to go back. It's not complicated, it's very simple. Like quantum leap is it's sciencey, but it's a very simple way to do it. He bounces back, he changes things, and he bounces around. They don't really try to explain what's going on. They have one rule, they break it, where he can't travel outside of his time, outside of his lifetime. They break it once or twice. But it's not egregious, unlike Star Trek.
Well, and Quantum Leap is also one where when he said, like, trying to explain.
Midnight in Paris, Time Travel Wife.
Yeah, this is the Rachel McAdams trilogy. But
Yeah, I called him, I was like, hey, Rachel McAdams is in all 3 of these time travels.
But Quantum Leap they have a whole situation that I'll try not to diagram it for you, but it involves whoever's place he's taking is hypothetically sitting in a room this whole time in his body. But that doesn't work narratively for some episodes, so they'll use it for some stories and ignore it for others. And in some cases, it can be really problematic if that person was sitting in the waiting room.
In the new one, they absolutely do it with that. They don't use it in Odyssey.
There's some, yes.
Wasn't it different in the first season? In the first season, he was jumping into their bodies, and in subsequent seasons, all of a sudden he was taking his body and people just perceived him as being the other person. And I think they totally changed it between seasons, and it confused me
If they did that,
I don't
when he got pregnant.
think they did that. There was one time when he physically leaked.
That's at the end.
Is that at the end?
Well, I think what you're talking, and I'm making it up, so don't want to contradict me, but I think you're perceiving narrative kind of style, not like specified science. So you're right, I think, in how they started telling the stories. I think they danced around trying to be clear about it. So like the pregnancy episode is a good example because Al is assuring him the whole time he's not actually going to give birth to a baby.
And
But
then
he's going into
on
labor pains
having a
and
baby.
he leaves like right before he gives birth to a baby. So it's like we're all kind of like, what's gonna happen now? But yes, they do. They kind of they
I
fiddle with
remember
it.
looking this up online and they actually said,
Oh,
yeah, they changed it.
Yeah, they had to do. It was weird
But this
because of how they started, and that's why I say if they did the new series, they just got rid of that whole idea because once they decided that he was going to leave, they don't have to deal with a person being in the waiting room. So they just said, we're just going to ignore that whole.
And I mean, the show ends with it kind of being a Dorothy moment where it's like the power was inside you all along, and forget about all of the science and all of the things we've set up. You can just go anywhere in time and do stuff. And you don't even need Al. Just have fun out there, man. Which mixed results, but it was.
Get your wife.
Yeah. So let's go back a bit.
Well, we have just the
Moments. We're not going to break down the Discovery timeline, but one of Anthony's was about Star Trek being on an alternate timeline for like the whole season.
It makes Primer look simple.
And I mean, honestly, if I wanted to spoil this for you,
They had entire seasons based on the broken timeline.
yeah. How are y'all feeling about time travel? Who says, yay, fun story aspect? Who says, oh my gosh, what are these guys thinking? Dave Sixmack.
Depends on which one.
Okay, I think I have some non-examples. I have some, I'm on Anthony's side, just in case here. Let's see. Okay, so in First Contact, Star Trek 8, which is, I'm the only one who calls it that. The Borg attack Earth, but it's not going well, so they suddenly go back in time and attack it in the past. But they have to wait to get to Earth to attack it in the past because only then can somebody follow them back in the past. You could go back in time and attack Earth in the past, but start way out in space somewhere. But it's just like, what are they doing? And I remember Riker stands up, time travel, and it's narratively. But it takes us to this other argument. And the other argument for time travel is one of my least favorite for Kelvin movies, but it looks really cool. And that's, it does, it looks really cool. They get to a good place with that. Another one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Turtles in Time. My son won't watch it yet. He's seen the first one, would be a great movie, not appreciated enough. But sending the Turtles back in time is a lot like sending Babe or other characters to New York. It's like, what do we do with this now? We send a Leprechaun to space, we send Jason to space, we send Hellraiser to space, we send people in time. Yeah, Sharknado did it too.
Sharknado.
They did it too. And honestly, I think the other one is, the Kelvin, because of the whole, like sending Narada back in time because black holes do that. Yeah.
So I think if you're gonna make an argument that time travel is lazy writing, then Sharknado is absolutely positioned to exploit that in the best way possible.
Mhm.
So it must be a trope in the industry, and it's just being turned on its head because Sharknado is all about egregious, hilarious storytelling.
You're right, and I mean honestly, they might have considered calling it lazy writing in time, because Sharknado runs toward it. What Anthony said with playing Doctor Who, where if I'm understanding right, he likes Doctor Who because it messes with the rules deliberately on purpose in front of you consistently. It's consistently inconsistent.
Well, Doctor Who starts on the premise that the show is about someone who travels through time, right? So that gives you a lot of leeway to kind of mess with it. So I like Doctor Who because they lean into the idea that the whole idea of time travel is ridiculous. So let's play with it. Let's do some weird, funky things with it. Let's have all 12 doctors show up in the room and talk to each other. Let's go change history. Oh, we can't change history. Only when it's convenient for the plot. So I like it because they lean into the ridiculous writing aspect of time travel. it makes, if you watch it and try to make it make sense, it will drive you insane.
And I hear a man at war with himself, loving exactly what you're talking about. But yes, that's
I like it because it's so bad at explaining time travel.
I did want to
And
show.
maybe that's why I can't really get into it like
There's-
I want to.
Yeah.
Because I've tried.
There's
And then I
butterfly
just-
you were talking about. Sometimes it's a butterfly. Anthony was wrong. Sometimes it's a butterfly.
But Hanako she podcast it talks about Outlander, right? Have you ever thought about Outlander, like how time travel actually works?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And the interesting thing is, well, at least in the show, they are getting to the point where they're starting to kind of explore the possibilities of how this happens, and it has to do with like ley lines. So they're getting into that with Outlander. In the books, I don't think they've really talked about it as much in the books, because Outlander, even though yes, it's about time travel, it's more a romantic
It's
story.
more about romance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have read all the Outlander books. I haven't seen all the show. But in the books, they talk a lot about cosmic events like the solstice. And
Yes,
travel.
they do.
So
Yes.
there are locations, there are times,
Mhm.
and then you need a large gemstone that will get burned out by the process to keep you from burning up in the
Yeah.
process.
But they're not talking about, reaching warp factor 7.8
Sure.
as you sling around
No,
the sun.
because it is
It's
more-
not-
it is
it's
more
not
mystical.
science.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yes,
more
more
like,
mystical.
it's very tied to the earth. Physical locations and the events of the earth.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually talked to Hanako and I was like, can you give me a rundown? She did. So if you've read that much Outlander, I mean, she's in charge of it for DragonCon.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
No, I can't say that I have documented the time travel aspects of it, but it's really interesting. I mean, obviously, like, convenient for the plot, for
Mhm.
different parts of it,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's like, I think this is probably a paradigm in other time travel, that you can like leave an artifact for your future self.
Yeah. But even like with Outlander, like there are certain things, like you said, there's a static time. Like there are certain things that you can't change. One of the big plot points in the earlier seasons is they literally go to France to try to stop the Highlander uprising, and they do all these different little things where they think it's going to make a difference, but it always course corrects. So it's like, oh, we did this, and so this can't happen. Oh, well, guess what? This event over here is happening, which puts us back on the track.
We could do a whole panel on fixed time things, time events in TV shows. Because Doctor Who made a big deal about, there's certain things that he can't change.
Yeah.
But then later he does. So there's a whole
If
thing.
you have an ongoing time travel adventure, you're going to have a reason why no one's killed Hitler. And you have to build that in. And Doctor Who just says the phrase, fix a point in time. So work
In
around.
Supernatural, they did.
Yeah.
So,
These are time travelers.
yeah. So that is all the time
Yes,
we have. Thank you guys for coming to see us. Obviously, hopefully we didn't stress your brain cells out too much. Nick did not convince me that time travel is good.
What?
Please rate
Except for
us.
Doctor Who.
Please rate us in the app. You can find me at Fandom Hybrid Podcast on all the podcast platforms. And on YouTube, you can watch us make silly faces and be stupid. And also you can catch up her talk about Outlander.
I'm Nick Frutiger. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming out on 10 a.m. on a Sunday. You're amazing.